Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com, part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network. I'm Mike Casazza, welcoming in Chris Anderson for the weekly preview coming up here. TCU, unbeaten, number 7, one of 6 and 0 teams in the FBS. They are 7 and 0. Taking on West Virginia, which is not and 0. They've been like, and could see some more of that this weekend because, Chris, the Horned Frogs play a little bit of offense, don't they?
They do play offense. They rank top 25, I believe, in both rushing offense and passing offense. So it's not great for a West Virginia team that has been giving up a lot of points, and a lot of yards against a lot of teams. So this could be another wild one on Saturday.
Points per game, important if you ask me. Maybe the most important stat. Number 3 in the country. Yards per game, it can vary. I think you can get like empty calories in yards per game. Number 3 in the country. Yards per play, that's a good stat. Also number 3 in the country. So by many measures, just one of the best offenses in the country that belongs to one of the best teams in the country coming to town against one of the worst defenses in the country. It's about matchups, Chris. That's a pretty ominous matchup, I guess. And then when you look at the state of West Virginia's defense, especially back to front, injuries, performance, etc., it's a dark day, it seems like. I don't know how you could feel great about this. Doesn't guarantee anything. It certainly suggests some number of outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to end up like a lot of games that we've talked about recently. I think not necessarily the win-loss, but the shootout variety. I think it's been over a month now where you and I both, I think it's like the second week of the season where after the Kansas game, we both realized, hey, this is going to be a season where West Virginia is not going to be able to play defense. It's just not going to happen, and they're going to have to win games in shootouts, and this feels like another one, especially with the way TCU plays on both sides of the ball, to be quite honest, because, yes, they're number 3 in the country in scoring offense, total offense, everything you just said, top 20, not even top 25, top 20 in both rushing and passing offense, but they're also not great on defense. And I think I was rattling it off the stats the other day when Neil Brown was doing his press conference, but number 90 in total defense, in the 70s for scoring defense, and the 100s for passing defense. So the opportunity is there for West Virginia to try to turn this into a shootout and make it weird, and then hope they end up on the right side of that weirdness.
Okay, we'll get into the sides of the ball, the matchups, what you like, what you worry about. I want to hit on a point you have there. I don't think it's very difficult to diagnose or prescribe, I should say, a way for West Virginia to engage in a shootout and win. For example, going to have to run the ball. Going to have to be, I don't want to say like hog the ball, but efficient. You're going to get third downs, convert them. If you can stay out of third down, great. Hit some deep pass plays, distribute the ball. Could be hard. Missing 1, maybe 2 offensive linemen. 1, maybe 2 running backs. That's hard. So I get that. Also 1 tight end. But if you've watched West Virginia, you've seen good stretches. They can go back and forth. They can answer. They can start. Not a problem. The other part is the problem, Chris. Now, historically, maybe not in this regime or maybe not consistently in this regime, there have been games where the offense on the other team has been top shelf. That happens in this conference. And then you look down at the end of the day and you're like, wow, that defense did something. I think of some of the Tony Gibson defenses that could handcuff, for example, Baylor or Texas Tech. There's ways that it has to look. What is the recipe for the defense to kind of just get out of a shootout, to get a couple of stops, or just to put the clamps on TCU's defense? Let's just say hypothetically, they're not going to go undefeated. They're going to have a bad day on the road. It happened Saturday. What does West Virginia have to do? How does that day look?
So the key is winning first down. TCU is, I'm saying winning first down, and now I'm about to talk about third down, but it's related. TCU ranks as one of the best teams in the country, or an above average team in the country in third down offense. Their offense stays on the field. It gets chunks of yards. And it does so because they typically have success on first down. Of course, it makes sense with that. They get short yardage for second and third down, and it makes it easier to get the first down and keep moving and going on and on. There's only one game where TCU really struggled to convert on third down, and that was the Oklahoma State game. In that game, they went 3 of 13 on third down. But again, it wasn't about what the Cowboys did on third down, but more so what they did on first down. Would you like to take a guess at the average yards gained by TCU on the 10 sets of downs where they did not convert on third down? What do you think they gained on average on first down?
Oh, I have no idea, but this is right up my alley for like niche stats. So hit me, please. I'm enthralled.
Negative 1.2 yards. Negative 1.2. Here are the 10 first down plays of the 10 times that they did not convert in that game. 0, 3, 0, 1, 4, negative 15, negative 7, 0, 1, 1. You win on first down. You win on first down, makes you win on third down. Win on third down makes you win on defense, makes you win the game. It seems very simple. I'm obviously, oversimplifying things. West Virginia does not have Oklahoma State's defense, but if you can slow down TCU on first down, it shutters their entire offense.
I think you're probably right, but this is what would spook me about that. They run the ball really, really well.
Yes, and a lot on first down, by the way.
And a ton on first down, yeah. So they're going to probably get positive yardage there. And their quarterback is so good in the secondary, and certainly one specific thing that I'm sure we'll get into that TCU's offense does well, West Virginia's defense does not, is an easy first down gimmick. I'm wondering how many times we're not going to see like 2nd and 3, which would be a bad thing too. Chris, that's a great stat. It's my second favorite stat of the year now.
What's the first one?
TCU has not allowed a punt return this year. Only team in the country. That's not my stat, although that is impressive. Great punter. Australian, 29 years old. They have allowed 0 punt return yards, which means average of 0. Their average of 0.00 yards per return. Where do you think that ranks nationally?
I'm assuming up near the top.
You would think number 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 5. Army is allowing negative 10 yards per return. Rutgers, negative 4. New Mexico State, which, again, if you haven't clinicked for special teams out at New Mexico State, I don't know what you're doing. Minus 0.75. And Illinois, minus 0.67. Army, 1 return, negative 10 yards. Rutgers, 2, negative 8. New Mexico State, 8 returns, negative 6 yards. And then Illinois, 3 for minus 2. I just thought it was weird that you could not allow a return, obviously allow 0 yardage, and somehow not be the best. So that'll be a challenge for West Virginia's defense.
I'd like to bring up one nitpick here, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm looking at I use CFB stats, which I think you do for some of your stats as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it. Technically, TCU doesn't even show up on the opponent punt return because they have had 0. Like I was looking for them, and I see that there's only 130 teams listed instead of 131 because, as you noted, they're the only team with 0. So I think this is one of those like can't divide by 0 kind of situations. So they technically aren't 5th. They're just in A. It's amazing.
It's kind of like how Pat McAfee technically had 0 career starts.
There you go.
And I was always like, I always took offense to that for him. Like, I was like, don't you actually hold the record for a career? I think at that point it would have been career starts. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you have no starts. And he kind of looked at me funny. I was like, you've started every game, right? Like, when was he not the kicker or the punter? He always was. He just wasn't out there for the first thing. And I don't know. I think I heard Pat McAfee's name this past week, didn't you?
Yeah, I was about to ask if there's a reason you were bringing him up.
I haven't seen it, Chris, so I can't comment on it.
Okay.
I actually have. That's the truth. I don't know what happened, but I know he said something, but such is the state of affairs right now.
Yeah.
Noon, home game. We love that, right?
We do.
Home game. Is it as easy as playing at home? Not easy, I guess, but obviously you'd rather play at home. Probably don't want to play at Texas for a while, the way the last 2 trips there have gone in the first half. Although maybe the Texas Tech game was closer than meets the eye, I guess, in the first half. We'll see.
Yeah.
A lot of home road splits. There's some things like, for example, drops. I think like they dropped one, maybe two passes at home. All the others are on the road. Penalties, things like that. They really do need to come home. They're home. You'd rather play an undefeated top 7 ranked team with a great offense on your field. Second time in a row, though, Chris, here comes a team that is just kind of battle tested, too. I wonder at this point if the mission is such for TCU that it really doesn't matter where they play. And if the other team is as forgiving as West Virginia has been, that kind of knocks down that wall that might exist on the road.
Yeah, I think we're still more than halfway through the season, but it's still a little skewed because of the Towson game, obviously being at home. But you look at, as you mentioned, the home road splits, and I'm looking at the more generic ones like total offense, total defense. Total offense, almost 200 more yards per game at home than on the road. Total defense, 170, 130 fewer yards allowed at home than on the road. So I think it's not quite enough to really know if that's a huge home field advantage just because of that Towson game where they only allowed 180 yards and obviously went out for 65 points. But it does seem like they do play better at home than they are when they're outside of Morgantown.
Last week, Texas Tech, coming off an open week, had played 5 games in 5 weeks against ranked teams. Certainly looked sharp. TCU has played the last 4 games against ranked teams, won them all. Like the most consecutive wins against ranked teams without a break, without interruption, since 1996. How much does that matter? Where the other team maybe just isn't phased because they're in a groove playing ranked teams, home, road, doing their thing, whether you've seen the top flight opposition like Texas Tech or you have seen and beaten, and in the case of TCU, rallied. It just kind of seems like you're in a certain gear. You're in the left lane. It really doesn't matter. You're getting around the traffic. You're getting to a better level of play, a more confident level of preparation, a more certain response to any adversity you see because you've seen so much quality opposition in a row. It's a quirk on the schedule, but I wonder if that isn't a factor for West Virginia where they're meeting like honestly like battle tested teams.
Yeah, I thought it actually might be helpful for West Virginia last week against Texas Tech because they had played 5 in a row, and I know they had the bye week right before, but it was 5 in a row and went 2-3, which I think maybe the 3 losses or the 2-3 record, however you want to phrase it there, might have weighed on them mentally. Of not that the season was lost, but that sitting at 3-3, as everybody in Morgantown knows, doesn't feel great. In saying, hey, the schedule's tough, only helps so much. So I think them playing 5 straight difficult games in a row and coming out with 3 losses would have put them in a bad spot. And well, it didn't, or West Virginia's the get right team for Texas Tech. But going 4 straight and winning all of them, I think how you phrase it there, they're in the left lane, they're cruising, they're feeling good, they're in another gear, and they probably feel like they are going to be favored in the remainder of their games. And honestly, I'm looking at their schedule right now. I mean, we know how good Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor are, but are any of those teams going to be favored over TCU right now? I don't think so. So there's an opportunity here for TCU to really run the table, and they have faced the toughest games on their schedule so far, and they might be in a good spot. Like they could be as confident as any team in the country right now.
At West Virginia, Texas Tech, at Texas, at Baylor, Iowa State. There's a chance, man. there's a chance this ends up 12-0, which is not something anybody saw. This was the 7th place team in the preseason with a first-year head coach, and we'll get into some personnel that you kind of went about in the past, and now you're going, oh boy, this actually worked.
Are you ready to get into that personnel? Ready to get into those matchups?
Let's do it. What side do you want to start on? Because they're both really interesting to me. One you could go on and on about, and one you really have to dig into to try to figure out.
Well, I think I kind of already got us started on West Virginia's defense versus TCU's offense with the first down, third down stuff. So let's keep that going there.
It's like a horror movie that starts with the slaying right at the very beginning, right?
Let's get it out of the way. And if you want any sort of positivity, you can fast forward about 5 minutes, 10
Yeah.
minutes.
That's extremely positive. Wow, 5 minutes. Just a very confident offensive outfit to this point too. Down 17 against Oklahoma State, win. Down 18 against Kansas State, win. Home game. I get that, but they just know they can score points. Their defense, we'll get to, but they know they can score, and that's really good. And Chris, your boy Max Duggan, can he do this?
It seems like it. I mean, he slightly more than Spencer Sanders has been my love-hate guy for like the last, it feels like 6 years, but it's only been 4, I guess. He is a guy that felt could be special, could be this for the last 3 years, and then he comes up with a clunker. He'll come up with a game where he's only completing 40% of his passes and has 3 turnovers. Now, obviously, West Virginia fans are hoping that's this week, but he hasn't had one yet this year. He has been extremely efficient with passing the ball. He's been very good at choosing when to run the ball, and has only turned it over. I'm not sure on the fumble stats, but he only has 1 interception, and that's not normal for him. And the question is this the new him, or is he going to revert to what he once was, to the guy that's completing again, like West Virginia last year? He was not great. 2 interceptions, only 1 touchdown. Ran 7 times for 27 yards. He's had other games. I'm looking at like the Kansas game here. They blew them out, but he went 3 for 11 passing the ball. 11 for 23, 11 for 23 a couple weeks later against Texas Tech, and so on and so forth. He has those types of games, but talking to people in Fort Worth, including our guy Jeremy Clark over at Horned Frog Blitz, they say this is the new him, and it's in large part due to the new offense, and that Sonny Cumbie has set it up so that he almost can't fail. That they've simplified the offense, they're not changing it, and it's just here are like the 4 or 5 things you have to do. Just focus on that and nothing else, and it seems to be working.
He's due for the clunker, or he's due for a game that makes you say, this guy's in the Heisman Trophy race.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't had that game in either direction where you go, that's Max Duggan out there. Or that says, that guy could win the Heisman for an undefeated or an 11-1 Big 12 champion. One of those is going to happen sooner or later, and that either excites you or frightens you. I don't know. Yeah, 19 touchdowns, 1 interception, completing 69% of his passes for 9.7 yards per attempt, and just the numbers in games where they have been impressive, he's been impressive too. The interceptions, Kansas State, no fumbles, Chris, and you're right. Here's a guy who ran sometimes because that was his comfort zone. Just not doing that very much. Good numbers rushing, but I would say modest numbers rushing because him handing it off or just getting quick passes or passes to very different receivers, that's by far the best thing he can do. And then the odd thing, he's really only done this in 6 games. Like he was not the day one starter, correct?
This year?
He's 2 for 3 in the opening game against Colorado.
Yeah.
Chandler Morris, I believe, was their day one guy. He's out, hurt. And Duggan, believe it or not, has a year of eligibility left too. For as long as he's been there, he's got another year left. Good story for him, and really has kind of made it happen too. Running game?
Wait, can I ask you one more question about Duggan?
Please.
Do you believe that guys can be players of any, especially at this level, affected or feel cursed or whatever about playing at a certain spot or against a certain team?
It's difficult for quarterbacks because sometimes you don't see a place twice because you get them every other year. So you may be a 2-year starter. How many 3-year starters do you see, right? This will be his 3rd game here, right? Did he play last year or was he hurt?
No, he played last year.
But he was hurt though, right?
And this is the thing. In the 2 games in Morgantown, he is completing only 50% of his passes averaging 6 yards per attempt and has 1 touchdown to 4 interceptions. And even in the game in Fort Worth against WVU in 2020, you add that game in, and that game was even, I guess even worse than that because he was 16 of 29 for 161 yards. So, yeah, he's averaging about 6 yards per attempt for his career against West Virginia with 1 touchdown and 5 interceptions. 1 and 4 in Morgantown, and has never beaten the Mountaineers. He's not even a threat with his feet in these games. He's tried to run 25 times, and a handful of those are sacks. I think 5 of them maybe, and only has 69 yards, which is, again, not normal for him. He seems to play better everywhere else except against WVU and in Morgantown.
I think he had a bad leg all last year, a bad foot all last year, right?
Was it last year? Yeah. I know he's had the heart issue 1 year, the foot issue 1 year. So he's had some maladies, if you will.
Remember, he basically was medically retired.
Right.
And then, like you said, a bad foot all last year, just couldn't do a lot of stuff, but still ran a lot. And then they weren't very good on offense last year, but they've been unlocked this year. And here's what's crazy, Chris, and this comes into the value of coaching and reputation on offense and his confidence in your schemes. A lot of their offensive personnel is the same. Their offensive line is pretty experienced. We recognize the names of their receivers and running backs. The quarterback obviously have been over too. They're just so much better this year. And it begins with me with one, they got Quentin Johnson going about 3-4 games into this, and he's been that first round talent that everybody knew he could be. He's been that for a month now. And they just know what to do with their other pieces. Like, you're a screen guy. You're a shallow cross guy. You are a gadget run play guy. You're our running back. Like, they just know exactly what to do, and they're incorporating pieces. Maybe piece we'll get to here, but really organized, collected, efficient in offense, and just good at what they do. But they have to tackle some people. Speaking of West Virginia, because these guys break tackles and just run by and run around and run through people too.
The Quentin Johnson thing, I was not joking when I set that over under at 2. What did I say? 2.5 or 3.5?
It was 3.5, sir. I had that written down on my board.
The catching a hitch and spinning to the outside. He catches outs and he with his body facing towards the quarterback, whatever route you want to call it, a hitch, a curl, and even an out where he's kind of looking back at the quarterback. And when he has his back to the cornerback and his face towards the quarterback, the guy passing him the ball, he spins to the outside, to the sideline. Every single time he does it. And every single time he breaks that tackle. It's amazing. Like, I watched it and I thought it was happening. And then I heard someone else mention it. And then, hey, when the guys on ESPN in the booth are noticing it, it's gotten pretty obvious. And then you go and you look at the stats. Would you like to take a guess who leads the Big 12 receivers in missed tackles forced after a catch?
Tell me.
Quentin Johnson. Would you like to know who is number 4 in all of college football among receivers in missed tackles forced? Quentin Johnson.
It's not Gunnar Henderson.
No, it's not. This is going to be it's a nightmare matchup because this is something, the tackling in the secondary, and Mike, whatever the sources are that informed us of the secondary tackling issues in fall camp, we're going to have to move them up the source board, if we will, because their info obviously legit. Because this has been one of the biggest concerns. I'm trying to decide what's been worse from the secondary, the tackling or the coverage, and I'm leaning towards the tackling, and I think maybe the coaching staff does as well, especially given the comments from Neil Brown and Jordan Leslie this week.
Yeah, he'll drop some passes. Dropped 2 last week, 5 in the year. To your point, though, Chris, this is a potent combination. Average depth of target, 11.9 yards. Pretty good, right?
Yep.
That means he goes vertical a lot, and he catches screens too. So you mix in 0, -1, -2 to get to 12 yards a target. That's pretty good. However, 8 yards after contact per reception. It's like 20 yards basically every time. He's getting it, he's getting hit, and he's running another 8 yards. So catch it 12 yards down the field, run 8 yards, you're moving to 20 yards. It's just very good. 6'4", 215. There are whispers he's like a 4'3", 4'4" guy. Just athletically very good. And you're right, his spin move is like the Sam Young shot fake version of college basketball. You know what's coming. What do you do? Just very good. And then they have other guys too. Darius Davis has 15 touchdowns in his career combined, rushing, receiving, punt return, kick return. He brought the opening kickoff back 100 yards last year. Should be an adventure with West Virginia special teams against him. Although West Virginia, 3 punt returns, 6 yards for their defense this year. They're up in that upper echelon too. They just have targets. And again, they know what to do. Big guy Johnson, small guy Davis. Tay Barber's the guy that they've had for many years, and just kind of have things that he can do. Jet stuff, short stuff, screens. Not a vertical guy. Didn't ask him to be a vertical guy. They've blended in Savion Williams lately. He's been effective. That's another guy that's got some size to him. Just a nice mix of players. And now, with the ominous words. Go ahead.
Because we were talking about Quentin Johnson and his yards after catch per reception.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the page up, and I go and I hit the sort by button so that I can sort by that category. Minimum 20 targets, I think, is reasonable at 7 games into the season. Oh, there he is. TCU right there at the top. Oh, no, that's not Quentin Johnston. That's Darius Davis leading the entire Power 5 football conferences, all 65 teams, in yards after the catch per reception. Okay, let me find him down here. He's right here. There he is, number 14. Oh, no, that's Tay Barber with 8.4 yards after the catch per reception. And then Quentin Johnson, 21. So they have 3 of the top 21 receivers in all of Power 5 football. All of Power 5 football right now. So far this year, West Virginia has only played one other receiver that was in the top 21, and that was Baldwin from Baylor.
Is that bad?
So
it'll be bad.
West Virginia hasn't quite seen what this is yet. I mean, Baldwin didn't exactly. I think we all expected Baldwin to kind of have a big game. He had a huge game the week before against Oklahoma State. Only had, I believe it was like 2 catches, but for 40-some yards against West Virginia. He caught a couple long ones, but again, 3 of the top 21 in yards after the catch per reception.
Yeah, and it's an array of bodies too. Big guys, little guys. Little guys are stout. The big guys can be thick. They can be long. And then we haven't talked about their tight end. This is where it's ominous. Jared Wiley. I think Jordan Leslie said the best guy they've seen all season. Like 6'7", 260 and runs, and they run screens for him. And we'll get to this, Chris. Screens. Lots of screens. I wrote the story this week. Like, no one does screens as often as TCU. And obviously, few teams are as good at it. You wouldn't be doing it so much if you weren't so good at it. Maybe that's not true, because what we saw last week probably wasn't a great representation of that. But screens to big guys, screens to little guys, screens to a tight end. This is, I don't want to simplify it, and sometimes I wonder if you're so bad at something one week, you got to be better the next. But West Virginia was terrible against the screen game against Texas Tech. Played too far off the ball, just messed up the pursuit, and here comes a team that just runs a ton of screens too. Is this as big of a factor as the stats and performances assist, or is this just maybe like spoke in the wheel and TCU just does a lot of stuff on offense, and that's one thing you got to deal with?
I think it's one thing, but it's an important thing because, again, Darius Davis, who we just talked about, is leading the entire country in yards after the catch per reception. His average depth of target is 2.9 yards. Like, he is their quick hit screen guy. And, when you are averaged, targeted like at the line of scrimmage basically, but still getting 13 yards, that's a problem. Like, because the benefit of, or the positives of these screen passes is that you get the ball out in space quickly. The negative is you have to get the yards after the catch. Davis gets the yards after the catch. Barber gets the yards after the catch. So West Virginia is going to have to, I don't know if you want to be pressing up too hard on this, but they have to be able to tackle the ball and fly to the ball, because that is maybe, the one-on-one tackling in space has been an issue. but the kind of gang tackling and everybody coming to the ball thing is another problem entirely. And Neil Brown talked about it this week. It's something that I commented on, I think I want to say back in the Baylor game, maybe even the week before that, or maybe against Texas, because there were plays where West Virginia would get the ball and somebody would kind of hold up the ball carrier or the receiver, and he'd have to dance a little bit, try to make a move. And by the time he did a little dance, there were 4 tacklers there to take him down. When West Virginia has a guy out in space and holds up a receiver by making him dance a little bit, getting in front of him, he's waiting on the cavalry to come behind him, and it just never comes, which is what Neil Brown's talking about when he's talking about effort and guys not coming to the ball. And that's something that's been going on for a few weeks now. And this is not the game to be putting guys out on an island like that.
No, and we'll get into what choice they have here in a second. But opponents for the season, Chris, against West Virginia, 31 of 35 on screens. Which, listen, that sounds bad. That's a screen. It's a long handoff. You really should be close to 100% there. But 358 yards and that one long touchdown against Baylor. That's 10 yards in an attempt on screen passes where you're liking your odds to get a couple of yards there. Again, long handoff. Are you expecting to get 10, 12, 15 yards in every handoff? No, but move it, eat up some field, eat up some green, flip the field and the boundary, play fast, whatever. Different teams have different goals there, but it's like a long handoff. It's supposed to be a modest gain, get you into good down and distance for the next play. 10 yards an attempt. That's troubling. You go to TCU, what they do, 27% of Duggan's attempts are screens. He's 52 for 57 for 427 yards, 4 scores. So again, not quite 10 yards of reception on attempt there, but healthy. Johnson, 6'4", 215. Pretty much 1 on every 4 targets is a screen. Davis, 5'10", 175. 1 on every 1.8 targets is a screen for him. That's what they do with him. And then, again, the tight end gets him, the running back gets him, the running backs get him out of the flat, the running backs get him a receiver. They just do a lot of stuff there, too, and they're very efficient at it. Going to West Virginia's defense here, Charles Woods will play, who knows how much. Rashad Ajayi, out. Wes McCormick, TBD. Mumu Bin Wahad, TBD. Lance Dixon, out. We'll get to the spear in a minute, but no one's making excuses, but it's hard to be good when your good players aren't available. That's 3 cornerback starters, a reserve, a really important position for Lance Dixon. It's hard to go into these gunfights, as we're talking about. If you're trying to engage in a shootout without all your bullets here, who or what has to matter Saturday? Is it as simple as whoever they put out there has to tackle? Do you think somebody gets picked on? Is it, hey, here's a tell, this one guy will play off the ball every time he's on the field side, let's throw a screen over there. They have to watch film of themselves. I'm rambling here because the potential for bad is such that kind of stimulates that sort of conversation. But also, they might find solutions there, and they might know how bad things are that it's easy to fix, which sounds weird, but I just think their problems are so glaring. All right, fix this and this, and it'll be better. Okay. Who's doing it? I don't know.
As you're talking about it and the fixing the problems, all I'm picturing in my mind are those old cartoons of a guy in a boat and one leak springs through and he plugs one finger in there, and then another leak pops over here, sticks a finger in there, and then another, and all of a sudden he's got 16 fingers. Jordan Leslie doesn't have 16 fingers. He's not a cartoon. There's too many leaks. I don't think there's one in particular spot, one in particular player. I think it's an issue that's kind of surrounding most of the entire secondary. And some of it's not like, is it Jacoby Spells' fault? He's a true freshman. Is it Malachi Ruffin's fault? He's a walk-on that, wasn't expected to be in this role. Charles Woods hurt, Ajayi hurt, McCormick been hurt. You kind of going up and down the list here of what's left and what you can do. And, somebody asked me in that VIP mailbag, hey, who needs to play more out of these young guys? And you and I talked about it on the podcast a little bit, and it was like, who's left? Who's left? To try. you're going down the list, and the guys left are Jalen Shelton, who just came back from injury, so he hasn't really been available until just last week and only played a couple snaps. Um, Raleigh Collins is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? He's kind of mixed in between. Has only been playing special teams mostly. Um, they're trying to redshirt him, I'm sure, but does he get thrust into a bigger role? Are we even sure what position he plays? Um, and then you go down Christian Stokes. He's been hurt for a while, so who knows if he's even able to play. Mumu Ben Wahad has reportedly been hurt. So what are your options? I just don't think there are many. I'm not defending anything. Like there's a reason, you're at that spot, and it's because you didn't properly replace or retain, but there aren't many other options to kind of to put guys in and try something new at this point. They have been rolling guys in and trying something new, so I think it's just a situation where you just hope a couple guys improve, try to scheme it differently, try to keep it so that they're not getting picked on too much, but there's just not one player because once you shade one way or protect one way or protect one guy, you're exposing somewhere else, and it's going to be a problem.
We'll stop the parade here for TCU's offense, but we haven't talked about their running game, which is probably what they do best. Some of their best personnel is actually in the backfield. Kendry Miller, 6.7 yards per attempt for his career. Pretty good. Their offensive line is good. They have a big blocking tight end. West Virginia's run defense, better than its pass defense. But again, why are you running the ball against West Virginia? The Dixon injury to me seems important because that's that field side defender. That spear sets the edge. What did Neil Brown talk about last week? The edges weren't there on the screen stuff on some of the outside run plays. He only played 9 snaps. Davis Mallinger's a good player in time. I don't think he's had a great season thus far, but also you're asking a redshirt freshman who's high school receiver. And for all of the hesitation about playing Andrew Wilson Lamp, Mallinger's pretty much the same background, right? So I'm not saying they're the same person. He's obviously a little bit further ahead, but dealing with some of the same issues. So you can't be too hard on him. I think they tried to give him help, for example, by moving Dixon over there, but he's not available. That just seems like a big injury to me because it's a valuable defender in the run. They don't really have a backup there now, especially if Name Muhammad isn't going to travel. He didn't play last week and travel. He hasn't been around lately. And again, not a name a lot of people know, but he's one of their other spears. Perhaps they can move Jasir Cox back over there. I don't know who the other Will is. It'd be X-Ray Low and who. They're really stuck there. That's not a position I know there's some flexibility and you can move some things around, but they just don't have the personnel to do it. Fortunately for them, their secondary, their depth chart question marks. They're not playing a team that plays with a ton of tempo, about 20 snaps fewer a game than Texas Tech. No one plays as fast as Texas Tech. I get that. But really thin back there. And if I had to circle one, listen, their corner play hasn't been very good. Dixon hasn't even had a great season, but just the scarcity of people and the specificity of that position with regard to the run, which is what TCU does well, that's one that I really am paying attention to. What do they do without a spear or a backup spear or playing Mallinger a whole bunch? I don't know who else figures in there if it's not someone I don't know. Collins was a will the other day. Lathan's a middle linebacker. Muhammad, even if he has to play, we're talking about plugging a guy in who doesn't play. I don't know what they're going to do there. Asked the question, got an answer from Leslie about, well, the good thing is it's a flexible position. I don't know who flexes over there.
Not a good position to be in.
Yeah. Seriously, who would be their other spear?
I have no idea.
I guess we'll take him off the field.
We'll just put out another bandit. It'll be fine.
I think so. And that's TCU's offense. Now we'll get to the good news. West Virginia's offense, capable. TCU's defense is present. What do they do well, Chris?
They're not terrible at run defense. And that's, it depends on who you ask, because I'm not sure if anybody asked, but Neil Brown said they were one of the better defenses in the country in the Big 12 during his press conference on Tuesday.
He said that.
He did, right?
To be honest, Chris, there was a lot of stuff going on Tuesday that I was trying to keep track of. I know he touted them. I wasn't sure what the superlatives were. Superlatives are definitely on the menu on Tuesdays, but I wasn't sure. I know we talked him
Yeah.
up, and I was like, really? Is it okay?
Look, yeah, let's maybe I'll take back if he said best. I will go back and listen to it, but he did tout them, as you said, talk them up, which
Mhm.
again you expect during coach speak, but I remember feeling like it was strong, over the top, if you will. Especially maybe it was because I was sitting there as he was talking, looking at some of the stats, looking at some of the players that he was talking about, and going, wait, TCU ranks 90th in total defense. Like they've given up an average of 30 some points per game in Big 12 play. Uh, this is the area where West Virginia should, make an impact because they've given up playing in their 4 Big 12 games 24, 31, 40, and 28. Now, that's not the worst in the world, but that's if you can score that many points against TCU, you're in the game. You're in the picture. So this is an area that, again, this is why I feel like this is going to be one of those games that could end up 38-35, 42-31, something like that, where there's 70 some points scored and it's actually close late because no one's really playing good defense.
Rush defense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is not necessarily the strength of West Virginia's offense, but something they want to do. They're going to have to do it very shorthanded. No Tony Mathis. That right elbow is a problem. Justin Johnson. Listen, I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised if he plays. And I'm not sure how good he'll be if he plays. Just what I've heard that that's like a concerning injury for him. He can come back this year, but like not easy to play running back with what's up with him. Anyhow, Colorado, just one of the worst teams in the FBS, ran for 113 yards. Tarleton State, which is Tarleton State, ran for 85. SMU, kind of a running gun kind of team, 104. Non-conference play, nothing great there. Did get 4 touchdowns, but you're talking 3.9, 3.0, 2.81 yards per carry. Nothing great. Conference play, Chris. Oklahoma, 179. Kansas, 189. Oklahoma State, 141. Kansas State, 158. Teams did it with different things, different ways to run the running back, different gimmicks on their offense. Oklahoma ran the ball a lot because they were getting boat racing, lost their quarterback. But you're talking again 3.7, 5, 3.4, 5.3 yards per carry. And quantity too 49, 38, 41, 30. There's something there. Can West Virginia hammer away at it with the quantity? A lot of Donaldson and presumably Jalen Anderson, maybe Marquand Rucker. I don't know. If they're down 2 running backs, they might have to play somebody. Heck, maybe not. Who knows? It didn't last week, but 8 touchdowns, healthy yards per carry, healthy number of carries per game. It would keep the TCU offense on the sideline. It might get West Virginia some confidence that they can win some man-on-man battles up front. It just seems like that, in conference play, you're talking greater than 4 yards a carry, 40 attempts a game, 8 touchdowns against TCU's defense. And by the way, their secondary is no doubt the strong part of their defense. So go where it's weak, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this probably could hold true for just about any game, for any team in any year, but maybe more so this game than any other. The key here might be for West Virginia to get a lead early and sit on it. Like, I mean, I know fans hate that, but we've seen West Virginia do that. We've seen West Virginia do that against TCU, especially, of getting up 14, 10, whatever, and basically taking the air out of the ball and trying to just limit drives, limit opportunities. They've done it earlier this year. They've had success with it. I get it that it's boring. I get that it's not enjoyable to watch, but I think maybe if West Virginia can get up 10, if they get up by more than one score at any point, I would fully employ the second half versus Texas offense of what do we end up counting that out as, like 3 possessions per team, 4 possessions per team in an entire half of play. I mean, maybe that's what West Virginia has to do if they can, because I know they're capable on offense, but I just think it's almost like an underdog in March Madness where they want to limit possessions to increase their chances of winning. Because I think the more it goes on, the more it ends up in a shootout. And I know we've talked about it being a shootout, and maybe that's what West Virginia, but if you can get a lead, try to limit the other team's chances to score, because I just think over time, the more opportunities TCU gets, the better they'll have of scoring. And West Virginia has the run game to kind of deflate the game.
Last 4 teams that TCU has played lost a starting quarterback in the game.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Daniels both taken out by Jamoy Hodge. One on a targeting play, one just on a sideline tackle. That hit definitely spoiled Gabriel for a game and more, and maybe sent that offense sideways for a little bit. Daniels out for the season, perhaps. Kansas may not be bowl eligible, which was a joke initially because they were 5-0. You're like, oh, they're 5-1. Are they going to get bowl eligible without their quarterback? We'll see. Sanders got sidelined during that game. And then last week knocked out Adrian Martinez, not Hodge, knocked out Adrian Martinez early on. So 4 straight games of starting quarterback knocked out. Take the head off the monster. Not as scary, not as effective. And all those teams had good quarterbacks that meant a lot to their offenses. Same situation at West Virginia. JT Daniels has not been as prolific as any one of those 4 passers or 4 quarterbacks in their offense, but certainly is the lead here for West Virginia's offense. Maybe no Wyatt Milam. They're hopefully he plays. Definitely no James Gamitter. If Milam doesn't play, they're going to have to play the 2 right tackles that they did not want to play this year. So don't forget, when they started the season, the right tackle was Doug Nestor. He's not been entrenched as a right guard. They moved him to right tackle because they were kind of hesitant about playing Jaquay Hubbard and Brandon Yates. That might be your left tackle, right tackle on Saturday. And listen, Hubbard's probably gotten a lot better since they had reservations about playing him. Yates, we'll see. Yates will probably be back home at the left tackle where he was before, but certainly some concern there. But to me, it just comes down to they play 40% of their snaps in man-to-man, according to Pro Football Focus. So it might be more than that. They have the personnel to do it. They have one of the best corners in the Big 12. They're aggressive. They're successful against the pass. And as recently as last game, and certainly more glimpses throughout the season than just last game, West Virginia's receivers just haven't been able to get open. All the contested targets, that's cool. You'd love to have guys who are open, though, and that just hasn't happened enough. And you got to scheme up ways to do this and figure out ways to get guys open. I don't know how to ask this question, Chris. So good luck answering it. But, I mean, how important is it just to liberate your receivers on Saturday?
It's going to be tough. I mean, it's extremely important because, again, we've been talking about how they struggle to get open. They struggle to get separation. And this is probably not the matchup you want when you're having that problem. As you noted, a lot of man coverage. And with 2 very, very, very good cornerbacks in Hodges, Tomlinson, and Newton. And they really get after you. And according to PFF, they both corners hold opposing quarterbacks to a NFL quarterback rating under 70 and completion percentages around 43 to 45%. That's not winning football if you're targeting them. So where do you go then? I'm glad you asked, Mike.
I was going to say, I'm listening, please.
This is what I'm going to call the slippery Sam James opportunity. Because, again, the 2 outside corners, Newton, Hodges, Tomlinson, tough, very tough. It's going to be very difficult for Prather and Bryce Ford Wheaton to get separation, get open, make catches. But Sam James in the slot, the guys who typically line up at what's called slot corner for them, Abraham Kamara, catching percentage a little over 50%, not great, not too bad, 80%. But the big thing here is he leads the team with missed tackles after the catch. On 27% of his attempts to make a tackle, a wide receiver breaks that tackle. And then the other guy who ends up in coverage on slots a lot is a guy that we highlighted in this piece last year, and West Virginia ate him alive. And that was linebacker D. Winters.
Yeah.
Because he's a good player, but he is kind of one-dimensional because in coverage he is terrible. He has been terrible. He was horrible last year, and West Virginia ate him up. This year, 75% of passes when he's in coverage are completed. He has, and then on those passes, he has 5 missed tackles after the catch in 16 opportunities, or 20 opportunities. So about 25% of the time he is missing a tackle as well. So these are the two guys that are going to be covering that slot. These are the two guys that are going to be covering kind of that middle short portion of the field. And I know Sam James has been going up field some, but this is one where I feel like he can kind of get those mesh patterns across the middle, the little short crossing routes, whatever it is where you can get the ball in his hands and make him make a move and see what he can do, because we've seen it from him before. We've seen him be fantastic, and we've seen him disappear for entire games. But if West Virginia wants to be able to win, wants to be able to get this passing game going, I think he is the guy that's going to be targeted a lot more on Saturday than maybe he has so far this season.
Interesting. How do they free him up? I guess that's the thing. Yeah. And this is what's going to be so fun to watch. They know they have an issue now with coverage, and I'm sure that other teams watching film, especially a team that plays as much man as TCU does, says, let's press him or play close, right? Do you do bunches? Do you do stacks? Whatever. There's going to be a lot of that too, but the slot rarely ever is covered and pressed. Just rarely is. And that would be non-exotic for either team, but that might be an advantage for TCU to be wary of there, because they do seem to like Sam James. That's the one guy they've been complimentary of at the receiver position, in addition to Prather and the way he's grown. But the one guy, I mean, you see those slot fades, those verticals in the slot. That's because James is free at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't get jammed very much. He doesn't have to run away from the conflict at the point of the attack, whereas other guys have to spend even split seconds hand fighting, footwork, and all that. The play's already going on. In the meantime, James is getting vertical or getting angled and getting past somebody or getting inside somebody. And he's going to be faster than guys he encounters in the middle of the field, too. So that's something to watch there. Good tip. Tomlinson's been around forever, right?
Mm-hmm. Feels like it.
Just feels like a good player has been there for a while, too. However, not been there forever would be Newton, transfer, who's excellent in zone, by the way. Just jumps on balls. Like he gets his hands on passes a bunch, and a good zone defender if they go that way too. Transfer from Louisiana Monroe, Mark Perry, transfer safety, Colorado. Let's see, Jared Wiley, the tight end, transfer from Texas. I'm going down the list. They have impact transfers here. A lot of transfers. I mean, no more, no less than West Virginia, about the same number. They've hit on a couple of them, which kind of goes over what we've talked about. They have depth guys who play. They have impact players, offense, defense. Don't have a ton of them. Have enough where it made a difference.
Can we talk about Newton for a second?
Go for it. Good player. Also, they're a linebacker, top tackler. Transferred from Navy. Navy. Would you have rolled your eyes if you're a fan if West Virginia acquired a defender from Navy? Probably, right?
Yeah.
Scouted him, got him here. He's been very productive, Johnny Hodges. Go ahead, though, please.
On Newton, this is going to be tough to listen to, especially given West Virginia's current situation in the secondary. But Newton was a guy they wanted in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Left Louisiana Monroe, actually entered the transfer portal back in December and was thinking about enrolling for the spring. And West Virginia kind of turned him away. Went another direction, turned him away. He went back to Louisiana Monroe for spring football when he originally planned to transfer, then re-entered the transfer portal after spring ball and ended up signing with TCU after that. There he is, one of the better cover corners in the Big 12 that West Virginia could have added back in December and didn't. And now he ends up on a rival Big 12 team and is starting and flourishing, while West Virginia is, playing musical chairs with freshmen and walk-ons in the secondary right now. It's a tough, we've been talking a lot about West Virginia striking out on the transfer portal ins and outs, and this is one of the tougher ones that, I think a lot of people forgot just because West Virginia went another direction.
Let's just add to this and have people just winging their keyboard around their office or just slamming the steering wheel. Are you ready?
Go for it.
He's very good, and don't ask me why I know this, but like I just know a little bit about him for whatever reason. Like, here's a guy who was actually recruited to play receiver in the Sun Belt. He's 6 foot, high school receiver, fine player. Um, they looked at him and they're like, maybe. January enrollee. They moved him to corner in the spring, right? Redshirt freshman year, he starts at the boundary, which, if you're not familiar, that's probably the harder of the corner position. You're going to see more vertical shots there. So, hey, go out and just chase guys around in the Sun Belt up the rail, playing man-to-man. Field's hard, too, because you're guarding a lot of space. But anyways, to be a field or boundary guy means you're good at one thing, and they put him there. It's not like left corner, right corner. They put him, whatever the short side of the field was, they put him there. And then just routinely starting plays, making pass breakups. Very good in man. But it's also like so fast, so long, so sudden. He's also really good in zone. Actually, his zone stats, according to Pro Football Focus, 13 targets, 3 catches with 4 pass breakups. So he's good. Just a good player. Passing game is going to be hard for West Virginia. Just because the personnel there too, they're going to have to be precise and exact, and Daniels will have to be a little bit more accurate and maybe make better decisions on some things. I know he got burned on one where I believe a receiver fell, and he kind of admits he goofed up the interception late against Baylor, and that's not his pattern of behavior decisions. When I say decisions, I don't mean like forcing balls to go in there, but I think maybe who he's throwing to as well in some situations, like vertical balls to certain guys may not be the best idea. Deep up the seam to certain guys may not be the best idea. The other thing is, like, does he check it down to anybody? Do they have plan B, plan C on plays? We'll see. He's certainly good enough to cycle through those plays. I imagine this game is extremely exciting for him because he can sit down and look at the different matchups and challenges and what TCU's defense will do. The defensive coordinator is Gillespie, who for a long time was kind of an unheralded, say, like, star, but like Tulsa's defenses were so good for so many years, and he was the guy pulling the strings there. Comes to the Big 12. I think their hallmark is that they just don't do a lot, and they're really good at it. If you're JT Daniels and you're seeing just the same pictures over and over and over and over, you got a great memory. You're very good at diagnosing things. I wonder what he may have up his sleeve. I think that's a guy who you might look at and say is due, or who wants to have a big game, or could be unleashed. We'll see. Again, without a lot of running backs here, you're missing a tight end. Perhaps see a lot of like 10 personnel. Maybe you see empty sets. I don't know. We'll see. But if the defense is going to do more with fewer things and just be very good at a small number of stuff, maybe not unlike an air raid offense or like one of those offense coordinators that just says, we're going to run a handful of plays, rep the heck out of them, dress them up with different formations of personnel. The personnel stays the same for TCU, but they may do some different looks. But if the ball is snapped and it reverts to one of a small number of things, to me, it's very intriguing to think about what a guy like Daniels may do or be able to do or have ready to go. And if he's capable of something special, memorable on Saturday, is he due? I don't know. But could he do something? Absolutely.
I think that's what West Virginia fans are hoping for. I mean, I don't know if we need to keep rehashing he's been fine but not amazing thing that I don't want to keep dogging on that, because being good to above average for 6 out of 7 games, I think 95% of the teams in the country would take that at quarterback. But yeah, I think this is an opportunity for him. I agree with you that the chips are kind of stacked against him, or the deck's stacked against him, and he has the chance to kind of show why he was a 5-star quarterback, why he was coveted by every team in the country, why this coaching staff brought him in to, as he put it, or his dad or whoever it was, to get 10 wins. He was supposed to be the difference maker that put this team over the top, and I think this is an opportunity. This is one of those games where he can kind of take the reins and really, lift this offense and lift this team.
Let's wrap it up, Chris. Noon game, awesome. We'll be talking 4:30-ish maybe, depending on how long the post game goes, depending on who talks to us after the game. Leave it at that. Who are we talking about? What are we talking about? Top of our mind to explain the outcome of Mountaineer Field.
All right, I won't take JT Daniels since we just talked about him, but I think we're talking about CJ Donaldson, because I think it does come down to, if West Virginia wins this game, it's because they controlled the offense, they controlled the ball, they got the running game going, they sat on it. I mean, it's not exciting. And I think, when this defense isn't working, West Virginia is going to have to score 40 points. But West Virginia's found more success in beating TCU by winning 27-10, 24-13. If they can get the run game going and kind of milk this clock and limit possessions, I think West Virginia has a better chance of winning that kind of football game than they do a 42-35 type game. So I think we're going to be talking about the comeback from CJ Donaldson, who really seemed to started a little slow in his return last week, but then picked it up as the game went along.
I don't know how you can disagree with that for West Virginia, so I won't. I don't know how you can disagree with TCU offense against West Virginia defense, and I'll narrow it down. I just think Duggan's that guy that people are waiting to talk about, and like it's to the point now where you just kind of think, wait, why aren't people talking about him? It's because the past. And he just got out of a stretch of 4 straight games against ranked teams. They won, they came back, they played from the front. They just did everything they were supposed to do, and he was excellent. But that one game that we've talked about before, that clunker is out there somewhere you worry about if you're a fan of TCU. But also, this is a team that he could put up huge numbers against, too. Could he end up with 100 yards rushing and 300 yards passing, something crazy like that? Could he run into the end zone and do the Heisman pose? I don't know. We'll see. My point being that it seems like a boomer bust game for him, and I think that's what we're talking about. I think the defense will have, like, the guy who's on the tarmac in the airport who's just got the 2 orange wands and is waving the plane toward the end zone or New York for the Heisman ceremony, or is waving the X and saying, not today. Had some pride, got tired of being embarrassed, came in undermanned, played good defense, forced a couple turnovers. I'm not saying like make his life miserable. Maybe you got to pick. Maybe you get your hands on the ball when he's running. Maybe something happens that's more familiar when you look at his career. Or he's just that guy. I just think it's going to come down to Duggan. He's either that guy that he's been all year, or he's that guy that is somewhere in the shoulder pads, in the helmet, who has been playing his position this year. I don't know if you test him, if you try to let him prove who or what he is, but you've seen this story so many times and narratives and all that sooner or later a guy has a breakthrough moment or a breakdown moment. I think that's where we're going to be, up in the press box from your office Saturday evening.
It's a big one, needless to say.
Large. We'll be rolling out all the previews as normal. You have this. You'll have the key matchups from Chris, which have been extremely accurate lately, have they not?
They have been some key things. Not that West Virginia is taking advantage of them or the opponents have been taking, but it's what's become the issue in almost every game so far. At least one or two of the 3 things that I mentioned. So important reading. Fresh set. Your fresh set is extremely important reading. I think you guys need to get on that every morning before the game. You'll be up. You put it up Friday night. You giving everybody a treat again.
We'll see. A noon game had to go up a little bit earlier. Also accurate, except I don't have 3 things. You have 3 matchups. I have like 10 on the first down, 3 other downs. Like it's much longer. I'm going to get one of those right eventually. But
there you go.
Speaking of accurate, charity bets. Got that coming this week.
Yeah, accurate. I don't know if accurate is an accurate term there, Mike.
I kind of feel like I'm the Bob Huggins gif. I'm popping out of the coffin here. I hit my head on it once. I didn't quite get it open. I fell down and slammed my fingers, but I'm getting there. I'm going to pop out of that coffin soon. I'm showing signs.
I don't think I've ever hated a MAC team as much as I hate Toledo.
That was brutal.
Up 3 touchdowns and had the ball in the fourth quarter, or 3 scores and had the ball in the fourth quarter, and somehow I ended up losing. Just amazing.
I was in such a hard spot. I was looking for like injuries, and I found the 4th-string quarterback for Utah State against Wyoming after Wyoming was on a bye, and I was like, yep, give it to me. It worked.
Yep.
So I got to go. I got to find who's hurt, who's on the road, so on and so forth. Plenty more coming on the site. Saturday noon, West Virginia, number 7 TCU, highest ranked opponent since Baylor was number 6 in 2016. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Long time. So. Special occasion. Some number of people will be at the game. We'll be there to have you covered before, during, and after. Until then, I'm Mike Casaza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We'll talk to you then.